All right, let's talk about tone. Up until this point, we have just been playing with a clean tone. But especially since we just got finished with power chords, let's talk about some other sounds you can get with your electric guitar. Now with acoustic, obviously, it's acoustic. You're not plugging into anything. But with electric, we can get distortion. And you all know this sound. It's awesome, and it's in everything. So especially when you're working on power chords, right? You got the... It's a very, very cool sound. And what distortion really is a function of gain. So gain is how sensitive the input is. So if your guitar is not putting, if your amp is just getting a clean sound from your guitar, right? It means the amp isn't pushing the sound at all. It's not being distorted by any means. But if you put a pedal in front of it, or for some channels that have dirty channels, some amplifiers have dirty channels, distorted channels, where it's built into the preamp, basically this is pushing the signal and to the point that it actually distorts to your amplifier. So, again, clean, I hit it. So everything becomes so much more intense. Now, with this pedal and with most amps, you can adjust your gain. So, if I turn my gain down, it brings my volume down, but it also isn't as dirty. It isn't as crunchy. If I turn my gain all the way up, you hear that little hum. It's very sensitive. It feeds back, So I'm going to keep that in the middle. Now most distortion pedals also have their own volume so that you can adjust that, and then you have some EQ. Now EQ is a very, very cool thing because it gives you control over how bassy, how mid-range, how trebly your distortion is. So for example, in this one, I got it pretty much in the middle. What if I jack it way up, right? I mean, really gainy, right? If I put it all the way down. Mud. But, there's a time and a place for all that. You don't always want it super crazy, ear-melting, razor blade bright. And you also don't, you rarely want it, deep, sour, gross mud. So when you, get a distortion pedal, or if you have a dirty channel on your amp, gotta mess with it. My advice is always start with everything the dead center, your volume, your gain, your tone, whatever you have on your amp or on your pedal, and just feel it out. If you think it needs a little more highs, just give it a little more, If you think it needs more lows, just give it a little more. One more thing I'll talk to you about. So, the pickups on your guitar is very important when we talk about distortion. This is a guitar that has humbucking pickups. So behind these silver casings, you actually have two coils. You can see with this guitar, two coils in each one, right? A single coil guitar, these are not single coil guitars, will just have one coil in each position. Those will ultimately sound thinner. And because they're not humbucking pickups, which are meant to, not have that hum that single coil pickups do, it's going to sound much better. A single coil pickup, if you give it a lot of distortion, it's going to hum, it's going to be a lot harder to control. So when you're playing with a lot of distortion, if you're playing in metal bands, rock stuff, more often than not, you're going to see guitars with humbuckers because they sound bigger, they sound fatter, and they don't hum as much. And lastly, whenever you're playing distortion, usually you're going to see people play in the bridge position, because in the bridge position is you get that bite, you get that. Where in the neck position, it's a little more. See how it just sounds a little brown, a little not so muddy, but just darker. But in clean, the neck position sounds perfect, and sometimes the treble can sound a little too bright, right? So you have to go back and forth, and you got to tinker with it. But a general rule of thumb, distortion and power chords, they go together great, right? Typically, you want a humbucking guitar to give it that meaty sound, to really reel in that kind of the hum and like the looseness that you get with the feedback in a single coil guitar. And the bridge position is where you're going to get the most bite and the most attack out of it. So I'd love to see you post a video where you're just riffing away with your distortion pedal, or if you have a distortion channel on your amp, I'd love to see you just riffing it up, and I'll see you next lesson.